welcome you all to the webinar organized by National Skill Development Forum of the Institution of Engineers India in collaboration with Himachal Pradesh State Center, Shimla, on the theme Role of Ancient India Towards Modern Day Science and Environmental Conservation. We are honored today to have our President, Institution of Engineers India, Engineer Narendra Singh sir, with us. To proceed with the proceeding of the webinar, may I now request, with the permission of the chair, Engineer Pankaj Dadwal, Chairman, Himachal Pradesh State Center, for welcome address. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, sir. मैं इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ इंजीनियर एचपी स्टेट सेंटर और स्किल डेवलपमेंट सेंटर एचपी की तरफ से आपका हार्दिक अभिनंदन व स्वागत करता हूं. On behalf of all the corporate members associated with HP State Center, India, welcome Shri Narendra Singh, President ji, Institute of Engineer India. सर सॉरी, आपको थोड़ी देर बैठाए रखा हमने, मेरे कारण डिले हुआ है, उसके लिए मैं माफी चाहूंगा. इंजीनियर सुनील ग्रोवर, चेयरमैन NSDF, इंजीनियर यादव जी, डायरेक्टर हेडक्वार्टर सेल दिल्ली, डॉक्टर संजय सूद, learned speaker, and all the attendees who have taken time from their busy schedule to participate in this webinar being organized by NSDF in collaboration with HP State Center Shimla on the occasion of World Habitat Day today. The theme of the webinar chosen for the day is Role of Ancient India Towards Modern Day Science and Environmental Conservation, and the speaker of the day is our own Executive Committee member of HP State Center, Dr. Sanjay Sood, Indian Forest Services. The online presentation on the subject focuses on path-breaking and practical contributions made by our ancestral Indian society in field of science, technology, and environment for better cause of community. The speaker shall be laying special emphasis on such contributions for the cause of environmental protection, which is the need of our. I also thank Engineer Vishwa Mohan Joshi, Director NSDF, and Engineer Kusum Sharma, Honorary Secretary, Engineer Dipesh, Devraj, and others who have contributed for the arrangement for the webinar, and I wish the venture a grand success. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Himachal.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Now, with the permission of the chair, may I request Dr. HRP Yadav, Director Headquarters Cell, for theme address of the webinar. Sir, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Respected President, Institution of Engineers India, Engineer Narendra Singh sir, Chairman NSDF, Engineer Sunil Grover, Chairman of Himachal Pradesh State Center, Shri Engineer Pankaj Dadwal sir, eminent speaker of today's webinar, Dr. Sanjay Sood, IFS, Honorary Secretary of Himachal Pradesh State Center, Engineer Kusum Sharma, Director NSDF, Mr. BM Joshi, my colleague and friend, Mr. Dipesh Kumar Srivastava, all the dignitaries who are viewing this webinar, ladies and gentlemen, at the outset, I must express my sincere thanks to the Chairman NSDF for giving me the opportunity to introduce the theme of today's webinar, that is, Role of Ancient India Towards Modern Day Science and Environmental Conservation. Ladies and gentlemen, just now before starting of the webinar, our President was just having cross discussion with the Chairman NSDF that ancient India has given the birth of modern India. So our President's statement is 100% true in today's context. In ancient India, the sages and the priests were highly qualified technologists, scientists, engineers, innovators, discoverers, and everything. They were the pioneer of giving the today's science and technology, today's research and development, today's innovative ideas, everything. Today, we are learning yoga, which is the boon of the ancient India. All the rishis, maharshis, they were believing in the yoga. Yoga is nothing but the art of unifying the mind and body. And today, we hear the preach by the Yoga Guru, various Yoga Guru, and we do practice in our day-to-day life how to do yoga and how to control our mind, how to de-stress from our day-to-day life. Ancient India taught us to discover, innovate, invent new ideas useful for mankind and society as a whole. Indian sages and priests were great thinkers. Ancient India was a land of scholars and scientists. They were great technologists and scientists. Some of the examples include binary numerical system like 1 and 0. These two digits make everything possible in today's mathematics and science and technology. Plastic surgery and cataract surgery are also one of the better examples of the ancient India. Some of the sages, they were also well versed in the knowledge of cataract surgery. And today's doctor, today's surgeon, they have followed their technology. So ancient India has really given the birth of modern India. Science of yoga, the art of unifying the mind and body due to rapid economic growth. Of course, there is a threat of environmental degradation, which is also part of the today's theme. Environmental conservation cannot be isolated from the general issues of development and must be considered as an integral part of it. हमारे एंशियंट इंडिया में पर्यावरण को संरक्षण के लिए बहुत ही अधिक ध्यान दिया जाता था। उस समय के ऋषि, पुजारी, संत लोग पर्यावरण को विशेषतर अपने जीवन का एक अनुरूप रूप मानते थे और हमेशा पर्यावरण की सुरक्षा और उनके कंजर्वेशन के लिए प्रयास करते थे। और उस समय के यदि कोई राक्षस जाति या कोई इनह्यूमन नेचर के जो भी राजा महाराजा पर्यावरण का दुरुपयोग करते थे तो उनकी रक्षा के लिए वे लोग अपने प्राण का न्यौछावर कर देते थे। This is also an example of the Lord Rama's victory over the Ravana. These all are the examples of the conservation of the environment in the ancient India and which has given education to the modern India how to preserve, how to conserve, how to protect the environment so that our life, livelihood life can survive. We should not overlook our traditional ethos. Concerted effort need to be made to integrate environmental concern into policies and programs related to economic development. Economic development is inevitable, but by overlooking the conservation of environment, it is not advisable. So in terms of economic growth, at the same time, we should need to preserve, protect, and degrade to save degradation of environment. We should respect our rich tradition of living in harmony with nature to conserve our environment with the culture and heritage of ancient India. Even the law of gravity, law of gravitation was not done in the beginning by Isaac Newton. It was also done by some sages, some rishis, priests also. Concept was behind that. Then the scientists discovered that. There are several such examples. Such type of innovation discovery were earlier hinted by the rishis, sages and priests, and then modern India adopted that technology or science, and today we are being benefited. I hope the eminent speaker would enlighten more on the theme of today's webinar. With this, I conclude my address, and I once again thanks to you, and I wish this webinar a great success because it is really a very different type of theme on today's webinar, which will benefit us how to understand today's life from the ancient India. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Now, it is my privilege to invite Engineer Narendra Singh, sir, the President of Institution of Engineers India, followed by his brief introduction. Engineer Narendra Singh has a degree in civil engineering from MNIT Allahabad and post-graduation in irrigation and hydro from University of Roorkee. Engineer Narendra Singh served government of Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand irrigation department with distinction and has vast experience in project implementation ranging from small and medium scale hydro projects and major hydraulic structures such as cross regulators and composite falls on Madhya Ganga canal projects. Engineer Narendra Singh was instrumental in successful rehabilitation of rural and urban families affected by the construction of Tehri Dams project. Engineer Narendra Singh has rendered exceptional service to the Institution of Engineers India in various capacities. He has been recognized through various awards for his contribution to the engineering professions as well as for his involvement in social causes and community development. He was unanimously selected as the President of the Institution of Engineers India for session 2019 to 2020 by the Council of the Institution of Engineers India, which is a testimony and recognition of his sterling and long-standing contribution to the institution and the engineering profession. May I now request Engineer Narendra Singh, sir, President, Institution of Engineers India, for his presidential address. Sir, over to you.
Good, ladies and gentlemen, role of India towards modern science and environmental conservation. Very, very relevant in today and earlier, and always be this topic will be relevant every time to come. I welcome here today's keynote speaker, Dr. Sanjay Sood, IFS, on this occasion. I also welcome Pankaj Dandwal, Chairman, Shimla State Center, Sunil Groverji, Chairman, NSDF, VM Joshi, Director, NSDF, or Dr. HRP Yadav, Director, Headquarters Cell, Dipesh Srivastav from Headquarters Cell, and other fellow engineers and attendees. मैं इस मौके पर बड़ा खुश हूँ. क्या कहूँ, पहले तो 2 बार अपनी इंस्टीट्यूशन के बारे में बोलने पड़ते हैं, मैंडेटरी है मेरे लिए. that II was established in 1920 and was coated with Royal Charter in 1935, by virtue of which members of this institution are known as charter engineers. II provides wide range of the technical and other professional services to the government, to the industry, and to the academia through its 125 numbers centers located in India and 6 overseas chapters. II represents 33 numbers of world's top engineering organizations such as WFO, PSCA, FIB, ASC, etc. During the long journey, II has established 6 forums which are located in prime locations of our country, and 1 autonomous organ which is known as Engineering Staff College India, located at Hyderabad, for continuous professional education to our field engineers and skill development for budding engineers. Friends, come to the topic. I will say simply कि ज्ञान का भंडार तो हमारा देश ही था. मैंने कभी 2 लाइन लिखी थी, वो आज मेरे को फिर याद आ गई. तक्षशिला और नालंदा में कभी ज्ञान की गंगा बहती थी, भारत ही है देश हमारा, दुनिया सारी कहती थी. मतलब सबसे बड़ा ज्ञान का भंडार हमारा देश ही था, और देश ही रहा है। वहां से ज्ञान आगे बढ़ता गया। साइंस से हमने तरक्की की। एक मदर के बहुत सारे बच्चे होते हैं। आप ये कहिए एक माँ के अच्छे बच्चे भी होते हैं, खराब बच्चे भी होते हैं। अच्छे बच्चे हुए उन्नति की ओर ले गए, खराब बच्चे हुए तो हमारी जो प्रकृति है उसने कहा कि तुमने पोल्यूशन खराब कर दिया। तो खराब करने के लिए पोल्यूशन भी उसी माँ से, उसी हमारी भूमि से। इन्होंने दो टॉपिक को जोड़ना चाहा है। मैं मानता हूँ साइंस एंड इन्वायरमेंट दे बोथ आर कंट्राडिक्टरी, दोनों का रुख अलग अलग है। अगर इन्वायरमेंट पॉल्यूटेड होगा तो साइंस के जो उपयोग है, जो उसका यूज है, वो फ्रूटफुल नहीं होगा। तो वी हैव टू कीप कि दोनों भाइयों को बैलेंस करते हुए हमें अपने जो विकास है, डेवलपमेंट है, उसे आगे बढ़ाना चाहिए। मैं पुरानी एक कहानी सुनाना चाहता हूँ जो कई बार सुनाई भी होगी शायद आप लोगों को। यहाँ हमारी जो भूमि है वो देव भूमि कहलाती है। ये ऋषियों की भूमि है। यहाँ ऋषि लोग रहते थे, तपस्या करते थे पहाड़ों में आकर के। हमारी हमारी जो भूमि है वो राम राज्य भी कहलाती है। हमने जो श्रीलंका जाने के लिए नल और नील जो उन्होंने दो इसके ऊपर समुद्र के ऊपर ब्रिज भी बनाया। बहुत बहुत सारी किंवदंतियां, बहुत सारे पुराने आविष्कार देखने को मिलते हैं। उन्हीं में से मैं बताता हूँ कि हमारे पुराने युग में ऋषि कणव हुए हैं। उन्होंने अपना आश्रम बनाया था कहीं पहाड़ों के अंदर गुफाओं में, लेकिन वहां जल की व्यवस्था नहीं थी। उन्होंने जल देवताओं को आह्वान किया था और उन्होंने कहा कि भाई आश्रम तो बन रहा है लेकिन यहाँ जल की व्यवस्था नहीं है। तो वो जो जल देवता थे वो सर्वे करने गए, वो गए निकले बाहर। उन्होंने देखा पहाड़ी के दूसरी तरफ एक बड़ी लेक थी जिसके अंदर सफेद बर्फ जमा हुआ था। उन्होंने देखा, जब बर्फ को उन्होंने खोदा किया तो उन्होंने देखा इसके अंदर पानी है। तो उन्होंने उस पानी को पहाड़ पार करा करके उस टाइम ऋषि आश्रम में लाया था। तो वो साइंस नहीं थी तो क्या था? 2500 BC पूर्व आपने सिंधु सभ्यता के बारे में सुना होगा और सब ने पढ़ा भी है हिस्ट्री में। जब उसमें खुदाई हुई थी, वहां पर मोहनजोदाड़ो की खुदाई हुई, खुदाई के बाद में जो वहां पर बिल्डिंग है, सामान जो निकला है, वहां पर उसके साथ साथ वहां ड्रेनेज सिस्टम था, सड़कें थी, वहां पर पूरा मॉडर्न सिस्टम, कंजर्वेशन टैंक्स थे। वो भी एक साइंस का ही रूप था। जो पुराना रूप था उसे हम बदलते गए, आज नए रूप में बढ़ते जा रहे हैं। उन्नति करते जाओ, आसमान तक पहुंचते रहो। उस टाइम हर चीज का कुछ नहीं था, यातायात का कुछ नहीं था। चिट्ठियां ये भी सुनने को हमें मिलती है पुराने टाइम में, कहानियों में मिलती है कि कबूतर की उसमें पंख में या पैर में वो हम जो लेटर भेज करके मैसेज भेजा जाया करता था। कभी ऐसा भी टाइम था, किसने सोचा होगा उस टाइम कि हवाई जहाज बनेंगे और देश इतना आगे बढ़ जाएगा, यहाँ से वहां पहुंच जाया जाएगा। 7 समुंदर जाना इम्पॉसिबल था, आज सारी दुनिया एक हो गई है। ये साइंस का ही तो कमाल है, इस सारी दुनिया जुड़ती रही। अब मैं ये भी पढ़ा है कहीं पर कि आग कैसे पैदा हुई थी। जो आदमी था, मानव, वो जानवर था, बंदर की भांति था, फल पौधे पत्ते खाकर अपना जीवन निर्वाह करता था। और फिर थोड़ी थोड़ी जैसे ही कल्चर बनी तो उन्होंने अपने वृक्ष की जो छाल है उसे अपने वस्त्र बनाए और आपस में लड़ने के लिए उनके हथियार पत्थर थे, पत्थर मार कर लड़ा करते थे। पत्थर मारते एक जगह चिंगारी निकली तो उन्हें दिखाई दिया है तो आग है या कुछ भी है। वो पहले पत्थर रगड़ करके ही वो बनती थी जो आग तो पैदा की जाती थी। आज कहाँ जमाना बदल गया है, गैस बन गई है और पाइपलाइन पड़ गई है, घर घर में आग आ गई है, घर घर में माचिस आ गई है। तो मेरा कहना कि हर चीज की लिमिट है। मैंने पहाड़ों में देखा, अब उसके जो घर थे, जो पहाड़ी पत्थर है, उसे पत्थर को निकाला, उसे जो छीला तरासा, उसकी स्लेट टाइप, उसे क्या कहते थे, पाटा, वो जो घर बनते थे वो पत्थर की स्लेट के बनते थे। एक तरह की टाइल समझो, फ्लैट टाइल स्लेट, उसके घर बना करते थे। और मर्द से जो उन्हें बनाए जाते थे पत्थरों के, उनकी दीवारें इतनी मोटी होती थी, वो ऑटोमेटिकली एयर कंडीशन रहते थे, उन्हें किसी पंखे की जरूरत नहीं थी। गर्मी नहीं लगती थी, क्योंकि वो इन्वायरमेंट के अनुकूल थे, उनके अंदर गर्मी नहीं घुस पाती थी, उनके यहाँ सर्दियों में वो गर्म रहते थे, गर्मियों में वो ठंडे रहते थे। क्या हमारी कल्चर थी। आज उसी का रूप लिया ग्रीन हाउस। ग्रीन हाउस कल्चर जो आई है वो उसी का रूप है कि कम एनर्जी यूज करते हुए घर ठंडे रहें, घर एरिएटेड रहें, और जो आदमी उसके अंदर रहने वाला इन्वायरमेंट प्रोटेक्टेड रहे, उसका सही रहे। इस तरह की बहुत सारी एग्जाम्पल्स हैं जो समय के साथ साथ जो बढ़ती जा रही है, उन्नति हो जा रही है, आदमी तरक्की कर रहा है। तो आज जो मैंने बताया कि पत्थर की लड़ाई से आज कितने बड़े बड़े आर्म्स एम्यूनिशन हो गए। आज बैठो 30 किलोमीटर दूर पर मिसाइल लागो, अपने दुश्मन को मारो, ऐसा बन गया है कि आदमी आएगा वहां से बिना आदमी ने कितनी तरक्की कर दी है। आदमी चांद पे पहुंच गया, मंगल पे पहुंच गया है, और ग्रह पे पहुंचना शुरू कर दिया है। तो ये उन्नति चल रही है। अगर आप इंसेंट इंडिया ना होता, मतलब इंसेंट कल्चर ना होती, तो कल्चर आगे बढ़ती कैसे। मेरा यही कहना कि एक हम कहते हैं, एक स्लोगन पढ़ा जाता, आवश्यकता आविष्कार की जननी है। जैसे जैसे हमारी आवश्यकताएं बढ़ती जा रही हैं, तैसे तैसे आविष्कार होते जा रहा है। कोई भी फील्ड ले लो, इंडस्ट्री ले लो, कोई भी फील्ड ले लो, उसमें समय के साथ साथ आविष्कार हो रहे हैं और नई कल्चर आ रही है, नए फार्मूले आ रहे हैं, नई तरक्की हो रही है, नई चीजें बन रही हैं। एक समय था जब हिंदुस्तान आजाद नहीं हुआ था, तो गांधी जी और हमारे भारत रत्न विश्वेश्वरैया जी में बहुत मतभेद होते थे। विश्वेश्वरैया जी चाहते थे कि जो हमारा कावेरी नदी के ऊपर है, एक बांध बनना चाहिए और ये बनना चाहिए। तो सब लोगों ने विरोध किया था, और उन्होंने अंग्रेज सरकार को ये लिख करके दे दिया था, इसमें खर्च होने वाला करोड़ों रुपए बर्बाद हो जाएगा, ऐसा बांध नहीं बनना चाहिए। लेकिन वो अड़िग रहे, और महाराजा मैसूर ने उनकी बात को मान लिया। उन्होंने कहा ठीक है, हम एक एक्सपेरिमेंट करते हैं। उन्होंने जो भी धन था कोलार खदानों में जो बिजली लाने के लिए, उन्होंने कावेरी नदी पर एक बांध बनाया और बांध से बिजली पैदा की। इसी तरह से वहां आज वृंदावन गार्डन आप जाते हैं, कितना खूबसूरत है। उन्होंने आविष्कार ना करते, अगर रोक लगी रहती तो कभी नहीं होता। राजनेता कई बार रोड़ा भी बनते हैं, लेकिन इंजीनियर तो ऐसी चीज है जो अपने काम को करता रहता और वो किसी को दिखावा नहीं करता। तो उन्होंने ऐसा किया, पूरे देश को बड़ा फायदा मिला। उसके बाद विद्युत जल विद्युत योजनाओं का सर्जन हिंदुस्तान में हुआ। इसी तरह से बढ़ता, किसी भी फील्ड को आप पकड़ो तो आप देखोगे कि हमारा कहाँ से कहाँ पहुंच गए हैं। तो हम आज खुशहाल हैं और देश की खुशहाली बढ़ती रहेगी। इसमें जो हम इंसेंट इंडिया का रोल नहीं भूल सकते हैं। जहां से हम शुरू हुए थे उस कदम को नहीं भूलते हैं। मैं ग्रोवर जी और उनकी टीम का धन्यवाद देता हूँ। मुझे ज्यादा नहीं पता कि इस टॉपिक पर क्या बोलना चाहिए था, तो मैंने इनसे बोला कि एक्सटेम्पोर मेरा जो मन करेगा मैं बोलूंगा, तो यही इन्होंने मुझे इजाजत दी। तो थैंक यू सुनील ग्रोवर जी। और मैं अपने की नोट स्पीकर के बीच में ज्यादा रोड़ा नहीं अटकना चाहता, इसलिए मैंने ये बोल दिया। वेदर आई आर रेलिवेंट, आई नॉट रेलिवेंट, आई डोंट नो दिस थिंग। थैंक यू।
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you for your address, question, sir. It was very much relevant to today's webinar's topic, sir. And we all have been very much happy to listen from you and your presence here in this webinar. Now, with the permission of the chair, may I request today's speaker, Dr. Sanjay Sood, followed by his brief introduction to this August gathering and the participants. Dr. Sanjay Sood is a 1993 IFS of Himachal Pradesh cadre. He is presently serving as Additional Principal CCF Monitoring and Evaluation at Shimla, and he has been impaneled as Joint Secretary, Government of India for the last 3 years. He is a postgraduate in Mechanical Engineering and PhD in Environmental Engineering and has a very distinguished academic and professional record. He has served twice as Member Secretary, Himachal Pradesh State Pollution Control Board as well as conservator and deputy conservator of forest at prestigious and challenging positions. Now, may I request Dr. Sanjay Sood for his presentation. Sir, over to you.
Am I audible, please?
Yes,
Sir,
sir,
am I
yes,
audible to
sir, please.
everybody?
Yes, sir.
Thanks,
you are
Mr. Srivastava. Please. Thanks,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Srivastava, for the flattering introduction. Namaskar, my dear engineering colleagues and friends who are on the dais with me and who are joining us on the online mode. It's very heartening to note that around 500 plus participants are joining this workshop, which are very, very impressive figures, sir, first of all. And first of all, I'd like to felicitate all of you on the occasion of the World Habitat Day, which falls today, which is celebrated every year on the first Monday of October. So this day reminds us of our responsibility to shape the future of our cities, which is very important because we need our cities to be clean and green. We need our cities to be livable, not only by the affluent people, but by the common people. So this is a big responsibility. And I think we need to take a pledge on this day to do our bit. Each of us should do our bit for the sake of making our cities more green and more clean, and there should be more livable, not only to the human beings, to all other forms of life, because we all believe in the form of coexistence. We don't only believe that humans only should live, we believe that every form of life has an equal right to live. So there's a very important occasion. Well, I just would like to felicitate you all on this very important World Habitat Day. And as far as today's topic is concerned, it will be on the contribution of ancient India towards modern science and environment. So I think our worthy president of IEI, Shri Narendra Singh ji, and Dr. Yadav, they've already, set the ball rolling. They've already given a brief, but a very, very striking introduction of the topic, and I think they've touched many of the major points, which I'd like to elaborate, because this topic is too vast. So I'll be making only a few illustrations to, show that India has done a lot, and India did a lot during the ancient times towards the conservation of environment as towards science also. So I'll just begin with the topic, sir. I'd just like to, first of all, thank the IEI in general, and particularly like to thank our President Engineer Gilbert Singh ji, who is there with us. It's a very proud moment for all of us. And besides Shri Singh, our Pankaj Gadwal, the chairman of the state chapter of Himachal Pradesh, Mr. Sunil Grover, Engineer Sunil Grover ji, the BOG NSDF, is the chairman BOG of NSDF, and then we've got Mr. Yadav joining us from Delhi. He's the director of the IEI, and then Mr. Srivastava is there. Ms. Kusup Sharma is there. She's the secretary here of the state center, and many others. I'd like to thank you one and all, sir. So just beginning with the topic, my topic, the basis on the genesis of this topic, it stems out of a false notion that many of us have. Many of us, including Indians, we have a false notion that Indian beliefs and traditions, they are unscientific, they are not based on any empirical data. So this is the false notion. And it's not very difficult to understand why we do have a false notion. It's a clear reason. I think there are two reasons for this, sir. First of all, I feel that all our intellectuals are scientists. They've all been, most of them, they've all been bred up in an alien atmosphere. The inputs that have been imparted to them, they are all in English, and they've been brought up in an English culture. So they feel, because the English people, they wanted us to be mental slaves. When English people were there, so they wanted the Indians to be mental slaves. So we are following this kind of a mindset. Though we are now a free country, but still I feel to an extent that mental slavery still exists in our minds. And secondly, sir, the most important fact I would like to tell all of you is that most of our Indian texts, which are scientific as well as religious, they are written in local languages, including Sanskrit. And very few people, very few people have got an idea of Sanskrit. Even very few people know even to understand Sanskrit writing, reading, etc. Nobody knows. So it's very easy to criticize the Indian texts, because people generally criticize the Vedas without even knowing that what Vedas are. It's only when you read these Vedas, you read these texts, then only you come to know that they are very, very scientific. Even when I was in school, I was also studying in English school, and I was made to believe that Vedas and the Upanishads, they are all very, very, illogical things, illogical scripts. So I also started believing this thing until unless maybe about 2 decades back, I read some Vedas, I read some excerpts from the Vedas and came to know that the most scientific texts and most scientific scripts even that have been written in this world till now are the Vedas themselves. So these are the basic 2 reasons why people feel that Indian science and traditions are unscientific. Well, on the contrary, I believe that the Indian science and traditions are totally scientific. And the science and religion, they're the 2 sides of the same coin in India. There is no science without religion, and there is no religion without science. So this is what my hypothesis for today's discussion is. I'm saying that the Indian texts, Indian traditions, Indian beliefs, Indian concepts, the old Indian concepts, they're totally scientific in nature, and we always have believed in the empirical proof, or what we call as the Pratyaksh Praman. So only after Pratyaksh Praman we started believing that that something our culture and our tradition started coming out of this Pratyaksh Praman only. So I try to prove this hypothesis as and why I go by this presentation, please. Just a minute. Yes. So given usko dekho yaar. Yes. So you see, the first and foremost question that arises in our mind is, after I just put down this hypothesis, the 3 basic questions that need to be answered by all of us is, first is, was there any tradition of science in India earlier? Was there any tradition? Second is, do Indians have a scientific temper? And the third very important question is, has our scientific history been colonized to suit the Western narrative? And my answer to all these 3 questions is a resounding yes. First of all, there have always been a tradition of science in India, and probably if there was no tradition of science in India, no other country would have a tradition of science. So India had the biggest tradition of science. Second is, do Indians have a scientific temper? We always had a scientific temper, and I'll just prove it by some of the mentions in the scripts, some of the examples that I'm going to give in the forthcoming slides and discussions. And has our scientific history been colonized to suit the Western narrative? Yes. We have written our history on the basis of the Western influences. So many things are just missing out there, because as I mentioned that most of our intellectuals or scientists, they've been bred up with an English frame of mind. So they wrote history with that kind of frame of mind only, and hence this history got distorted over the ages. And yes, the answer to the third question is also yes. So I'm just trying to prove it. It's said that Francis Bacon of the 17th century, he was the person who relied on empirical proof. Pratyaksh Praman. He was the first scientist who started believing in Pratyaksh Praman. So we consider him to be the father of logical reasoning. This is what people say. But no, I think much before that, even 3,000 years before that, we have always stressed upon scientific reasoning. We have got at least 6 systems of Indian philosophy: the Nyaya system, the Sankhya Yoga, Advait system, Visheshat Yoga. I've gone through some of the excerpts of this, and all these systems of philosophy, they all believe in Pratyaksh Praman. And a lot of discussions are mentioned in those scripts, and only when there is a Pratyaksh Praman, then only something becomes our belief. So Indians have always believed in scientific temper. Indians have been the most scientific people in the world since the ancient times. Our civilization dates back to at least 90,000 years back. That's the recording time period. It can be even earlier. So no other civilization can claim to be that old. It's only the Indian civilization which is as old as about 1 lakh years old. So I've also gone through some of the excerpts from the Payasi Sutra of the long discourses of Buddha. So I was reading these chain of stories, and in each of the stories it's mentioned that you have to believe anything only when there is a Pratyaksh Praman for that. Otherwise you have to believe it. And hence we have always been a scientific people from the beginning itself. Next. So you see the type of contribution that India has made for the last so many years. It has been acknowledged by big philosophers and big writers from USA and from England and all. So this William Gilbert, he was one of the biggest philosophers and one of the most prolific writers from England. He mentioned that India is the fountainhead of knowledge. It's only India which has given most of the knowledge to the other countries. We have given the zero concept, we have given the decimal system, as Mr. Yadav was pointing out. We have given the philosophical concepts, the fables of Hitopadesha and Panchantantra. They are world famous. They have been translated into so many other languages as no other book has ever been translated as yet. And there were a lot of artistic projects, products of architecture, philosophy. They're all unparalleled. They're all unparalleled. So this is the belief of even the Western scientists who have made a deep study of Indian philosophy and religion. Next. So sometimes back, and I'm just trying to mention this, that Om, this syllable Om, it was considered to be a religious syllable, that it's a religious thing only confined to Hindus. But now the scientists have proved it is the most logical sound that is there pervading throughout the universe. When you sound Om, when you chant Om, the frequency that is generated because of this is 432 hertz. And this is the same frequency which is found in every other object of nature. This is the natural frequency. We all are engineers. We know what is the natural frequency of an object. A natural frequency of any object in this earth is 432 hertz, the same as we chant when we chant Om. So what we do is, when we are chanting Om, we are connecting ourselves to each and every object on the earth. In this Srishti, we are trying to connect ourselves with everything in and around us. So this is the philosophy behind our religion. It's not only religion, it is pure science. It's pure science, even chanting of Om, which is, people used to think that it is having a religious connotation, which is not true. It is a totally scientific concept. And now people who are practicing yoga, as Mr. Yadav was mentioning, they're all chanting this syllable so many times, and they're attaining a lot of peace out of it. So this is again science. And now coming to what contributions that we made a lot of contributions. The list is unending. But maybe if we try to analyze some of them, the basic major contributions that Indian scientists and philosophers have made is towards atomism. Indians were the first, about 3,000 years back. Rishi Kannada was the first who said that atom is the basic element, the smallest particle of life. It cannot be further divided. Cannot be further divided. And this has been mentioned in his books 3,000 years back. And John Dalton and all, whom we give the credit for, discovering atom, they only did it maybe 200 years back. We knew it for the last 3,000, 3,500 years. Zero was given by India. Trigonometric functions were given by Aryabhatta, Bodhya, and I'll just say to see even Pythagoras Theorem, as somebody was mentioning, it's a complete Indian discovery. We discovered it 4,000 years back. But now we are saying that Pythagoras, he did it maybe 200 or 300 years back. It's not true. And I'll just prove it by these mentioned in our scripts. Like the modern decimal system, again, Bhaskaracharya was the person who did the modern decimal system. Astronomical calculations, Varamira and Brahmavat, the great Indian scientists who did these astronomical calculations. And the calculations even stand till today. Without any sophisticated instruments, they could, gauge the distance between Earth and Sun. How much time Earth takes to rotate about its axis every year. So this Varamira and Aryabhatta, they did it so many years back, and the calculations are so accurate. Then the crescograph, the instrument to measure growth in plants, this is discovered by Indians. Ramayana, Mahabharata, Vedas, Surya Siddhanta, they are books of extreme literary merit, I'm telling you. Just go by Ramcharitmanas, written by Goswami Tulsidas ji. Just forget about the religious connotations that this script has. Just only on the literary merits. If you just go through Ramcharitmanas, it's so scientific and it's of such a high literary quality that probably it will need thousands and thousands of Shakespeares to even match one item of this literary merit of this book. But still, the problem is that we don't believe it because we have been bred up in an alien kind of an atmosphere. We believe in high, bi and Thai culture. This is the problem with the Indians. So sooner we forget it, the better it's for us, India, because India has always been the fountainhead of knowledge in all fields of life. So I'll just try to mention what some of our great scientists did. Maybe 4 or 5 illustrations I'd like to give. So this is the great Indian astronaut, astronomer and physicist Aryabhatta, born in 5th century AD. You see what he did. He said that Earth takes around 23 hours, 56 minutes and 4.01 seconds to complete one rotation. This is exactly the calculation done by the modern scientists about 200 years back. So what we could do 2000 years back, probably now our scientists are doing. Now the Western scientists are doing. And he said that the Earth is spherical in shape. People used to believe up to 1400, 1500 AD, they used to believe that Earth is, a square. But we always said it is spherical. It's mentioned in the Rig Veda. It rotates on its axis, and the path of all the planets, it's elliptical in nature. So I'm showing you those descriptions also mentioned in different texts. I'm just coming to those things. So Aryabhat, the contributions of Aryabhat are unparalleled. But see, still we give credit to only Copernicus and Kepler and whatnot, I don't know. But they're all Indian discoveries and inventions. We have to believe this. Brahmagupta, the scholar who gave zero the value, we didn't know about zero earlier. It's only after we started knowing zero, then we started knowing about big quantities. And this was given to us by Brahmagupta in the 6th century AD. And now only about 100 or 200 years back, people are claiming that they have developed something called as the Google number with about 1000 zeros or something. So they're all, Indian inventions, Indian discoveries as such. And this has been mentioned in the Brahm Surput Siddhant, written in 624 AD by Brahmagupta himself. So it's very much recorded. We must go and see it. But the only problem is that all these books are written in Sanskrit. Our philosophers, our scientists, most of them are totally zero in reading or writing Sanskrit at all. This is the problem. Bhaskaracharya, he gave the zero its symbol, and then he was the person who could imagine figures with at least 53 zeros. What we have to, he called it Tilakshana, a number with another 53 zeros following one. This number was called as Tilakshana, and we were familiar about this. And Romans could only count up to 100 or 50 in 1500 or 1600 AD. And we say that the Roman numerals came first and Indian numerals came later. It's not true. We knew about numerals. We knew about the big magnitude of numerals thousands and thousands of years back. Nagarjuna, I tell you, the biggest alchemist that has been produced by this world ever. He was an Indian. He was born in 10th century AD. And he tried, to convert every base metal into gold. He tried hard with the chemical reactions of certain chemicals. He couldn't succeed totally, but he ended up with conceiving imitation jewelry, which we now use it in many forms. The imitation jewelry of different concentrations, they are the discoveries of Nagarjuna, and they are all mentioned in this the Ras Ratnakar, the book that he has written, and this book was written in 1073 AD. So this is another big contribution that India has made. So this is an alchemist and science, chemistry, biggest contribution that has ever been made in this world was made by Nagarjuna. Canada, I was telling you, about 500 BC, that is around 2500 years before today. He could imagine the atom. He said that Parmanu, the atom is the smallest indivisible particle of matter. So now we say that Dalton did it, he actually did not. It was Canada who did it. And he did it in a very, very scientific made. And now the law of atomic theory, that the Dalton's law of atomic theory, most of the postulates of this law, or the Dalton's theory, they are what Canada could envisage maybe 2500 years back. So again, we need to believe that Canada Rishi was the one, who is also known as Kashyap Rishi. He was the one who could conceive of an atom, and Parmanus and atoms earlier. Likewise with Bodhayan, we are talking about the Pythagoras Theorem. We are saying that square of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares of the base and the square of the height. So we attribute this credit to Pythagoras, who was born in 17th century, But Bodhayan had the same calculation done in 800 BC. That was 2800 years before now. Same thing he's saying. You can just keep. He says the rope stretched along the length of the diagonal of a rectangle produces an area with the vertical and horizontal sides made together. Same thing. The hypotenuse square equals to base square plus height square. So this should be known as the Bodhayan Sutra rather than the Pythagoras Theorem. I'll tell you exactly where he's mentioned this. I'm just going to narrate those Sanskrit shlokas as such. The Varamira, I'll tell you this. He could, calculate the shifting of the skies per day and he came up with the figure of 50.32 seconds. He mentions in his book Surya Siddhant that he is mentioning that this sky, it moves by 50.32 seconds every day. This thing is called as ayanams in Jyotish. And he mentioned this thing, and this figure is even nobody has been able to change this figure even till today. So this was a big thing, and now most of the astrological or astronomical calculations are based on what Varamira could, envisage about, 1500 years back in the 6th century AD. And now these NASA and all, they're doing the research on what Varamira did about 1500 years back now. Likewise, this Brahmagupta and Bhaskaracharya. Now we say that Newton said that the law of gravitation we attribute it to Newton and Kepler and all those things. In Surya Siddhant, all these laws have been mentioned so many times. And this the Surya Siddhant was written about 13 to 1400 years back. He mentioned the Earth on its axis, on all its sides is the same. He mentions this thing. All people on Earth stand upright, and all heavy things fall down to the earth by our law of nature, for it is the nature of the earth to attract and to keep things. Exactly the law of gravitation, what Newton says maybe 1500 years later. They were said by Brahmagupta. So this is the law of gravitation, and likewise that he's also talking about the law of equilibrium, that how do the planets keep themselves in equilibrium in the space. So he's mentioning that thing also in his book Surya Siddhant. I'm going to come to that. Sushruta was the greatest physician or greatest surgeon that this world has ever produced. There were two basic, the two physicians that India has produced. The biggest physicians that India has produced is Charak and Sushruta. Charak for medical science, and Sushruta for surgery. So Charak wrote this Charak Samhita, in which I've just gone through that book. 3000 kind of Ayurvedic treatments are mentioned there, and it has got he has mentioned the treatments even for cancer. What Westerners could elucidate, or which they could diagnose it only maybe 200 years back, but Charak mentioned it around 1700 years back. And Sushruta, he was born about in 800 BC. That means around 2800 years from now. And he was such a great surgeon. He did rhinoplasty, the surgery of the nose, by taking out a flap from the forehead of the screen. And I am very happy to say this thing, even now, the best surgery performed by American surgeons, they used exactly the same technique what Sushruta used to do 3000 years back. But nobody believes in India, no? So what happened was, a few maybe decades back, the Royal Academy of Surgeons in Melbourne, they read the book of Sushruta Samhita, translated that into English, and then when they found that Sushruta was so great, now they erected his statue in Melbourne, in the Royal Academy of Surgeons. And once that statue was erected, then suddenly India also, was enlightened. Oh, the Sushruta was great. And then we started saying that Sushruta has always been the greatest surgeon that this world has ever produced. So, in India, what the problem is that you are only recognized if you are recognized in other countries first. Same thing happened with Dr. Hargobind Khurana, a great gene specialist. He did a lot of research in India, but he had to struggle a lot. Eventually, he went to US, did his thesis out there, won a Nobel Prize in the US, and once he won a Nobel Prize, then we started recognizing him. This is the problem with this country. So I have gone through some of the excerpts from Sushruta Samhita. Each at least mentions 120 surgical instruments. It mentions 300 surgical procedures and classifies human surgery in 8 categories. It is such an illustrative book that you get engrossed in reading this book once you are going through it, the translation of it in Hindi or English. Because even I don't know much of Sanskrit, so I have to depend upon the Hindi translation or the English translation. Now coming to Vedas. Now Vedas, as I was mentioning, that people think that Vedas are illogical, they are based on superstition or something. It's not true. It's not true at all. Vedas are the most scientific texts that have ever been written. I don't know, maybe thousands of years old. I don't know when they were actually written. But whatever little excerpts I've just read about the Vedas in different books and all, they're mind-blowing, I'm telling you. I could say that they are actually they are the Vedas are having a spiritual element, of course, but only 5%, and 95% is totally scientific. So it's, religion intermingled with science, complete intermingling of science, and thoroughly detailed and thoroughly illustrative. So every Veda has an Up Veda also, which are the branches of Vedas. So Arth Vedas deals with statecraft, what you've seen in this Kautilya's Arth Shastra I'm telling you. Ayurveda, it deals with medicine and health. It originates from Rig Veda. So I've read this, what some excerpts, maybe 200, 300 pages I've read. Dhanu Veda, it comes from the Yajur Veda. How how to, it's about all Dhanu Vidya. Well, a lot of things are mentioned there. So I couldn't just read it completely, but I'm trying to go through this. Maybe it will take another 1 year or 2 years before I'm able to, decipher many of the things here. Gandharv Veda, it's about music and arts, and it is a branch of Samveda. And this Veda, it explains architecture. Marvelous, my friends from architecture, whom I know, my engineering friends, I gave them a copy of this Sthapatya, the English version, and now they are so fascinated that they want more copies, of this same thing. And they're asking for more copies of this because they've come to know that they've found out that they are the most scientific texts on architecture, what they could even ever imagine. So it's all science, it's complete science in the Vedas and less of religion, I'm telling you. And anybody from any religion can read these books and gain a lot out of them. The only thing is that you should be prepared to read it. And then I'm sorry to say that only Westerners, they have translated the Vedas into maybe this one, Ralph Griffith. He translated Vedas into English. And then only people of India started knowing, oh, it's good. Now we are also reading the English version because most of us they've all been brought up in an English culture and atmosphere. So even we don't know Sanskrit. So I've read this Ralph Griffith's book. It's mind blowing, I'm telling you. And likewise, this Charles Wilkins was the person from England who translated Gita into English. And now Bhagavad Gita, now people are saying, oh, Bhagavad Gita is great. It's the way of life and this is how you should live. So it's only after, other countries recognize the greatness of Indian culture, then we also start, recognizing it. But the point is, this our culture. We must, initiate how to, back it up. That's what we have been unable to do. I'm sorry to say. We've been great intellectuals, but somehow that mental element of slavery in our mind, that doesn't go. We still feel that we are, secondary to English people, secondary to Germans, secondary to everybody. Only thing is that work culture in this country is lacking. Otherwise, we have got the best of the talents that is there. So if we only, focus ourselves, maybe believe in our old texts and maybe do proper studies and all, India is unparalleled, I'm telling you. So now coming to some of the scriptures. Now I'm telling you what has been mentioned in our scripts, so that everybody starts believing that yes, Indians, they knew about all these things. So I'm talking about Johannes Kepler, this Kepler's law of motion, that we have the planets move in elliptical orbits, and that when the planet is at the apogee, that apogee means the position when it is farthest from the sun. At that time, its speed is the slowest, and whenever the planet is at the perigee, that means it's closest to the sun, the speed becomes the fastest. So these are Kepler laws. So you see, this is the Rig Veda. I'm talking about Rig Veda. I've just collected this shloka from Rig Veda, and I'm also mentioning this. You see this thing. They're talking about Tri-Navi Chakram. Tri-Navi Chakram, they're mentioning that all the planets, they move in elliptical orbits. Tri-Navi means, Chakram means a circle with 3 centers. Circle with 3 centers means an elliptical orbit. So what Kepler did in 17th or 18th century, this Rig Veda has been mentioned 4,500 years back, 5,000 years back. And he's mentioning that all orbits, the planets, they are moving in elliptical orbits. And next is the first law of planetary motion. You see this thing in 2 lines, such a beautiful description given by, this Aryabhatian in his book, 5th century AD book. Please read these 2, lines in Sanskrit. He's mentioning that, all planets, they move in elliptical orbits, and when they are at the apogee, they see Mandalachanam Anulomam means when they are at the apogee, their speed is the lowest. And Shigrochat Pratilobnam, when they are at the perigee, their speed becomes the highest. This is what Kepler's second law of motion is. So where is Kepler gone now? It's Aryabhatia who did these laws of motions. Exactly, it's mentioned. You can read it. It's not like it's unknown. So the meaning is that all planets, when moving on their orbits or in eccentric circles, move with their own motion, anti-clockwise from their apogees and clockwise from their perigees. You can mention. You can see these things clearly mentioned there. So in astronomy, this was the lot of this was the contribution that Indian astronomers have made. Coming to next, people even did not know what the Earth is made of. But we have known these till centuries and centuries together that Earth is made up of 5 basic elements. Even Tulsidaji, 500 years back, he mentions Shiti Jal Pavak Gagan Samira Panchavachit Ati Adam Sharira. Shiti means land, Jal means water, Pavak means fire, Gagan means ether. Because this गगन जो अभी हम बोल रहे हैं वो अंग्रेजों को तो पता भी नहीं था कि गगन कोई चीज होती है. अभी थोड़े साल पहले उसका नाम उन्होंने ईथर दिया. And air, fifth is Samira means air. So they are mentioning this in single line from Aryabhatian. You see what they are mentioning. Mrij jala shirk vayu maya bhugor sarvo vritha. This means mrij jala. Mrij means bhumi, jala means jal, shirk means vayu means air, and maya means akash. So our Earth is composed of these 5 elements, and sarvo vritha. Earth is spherical in shape. So mentioned in Aryabhatiam in 5th century AD. And now the Ptolemy and Galileo and Copernicus, they are saying the same thing maybe in 1500 AD and 1600 AD. So who are the actual discoverers? It's the Indians. It's not like anybody else who has discovered all these things. Coming to Isaac Newton, he claims that he found out the law of gravitation. Now this is, please read this. What Bhaskaracharya mentioned in his book. This is a Sanskrit shloka, I'm just quoting it from the text. So he's mentioning Akrishti Sakshituto Mahiyata Swastam Guru Swami Dugam Swashwaktakya Akrishre Tat Patviva Bhati Samay Samantat Kavaya Patyam Khe. Means every object is attracted towards the earth due to the gravitational pull. So the gravitation was discovered by the Indian scientists. Where is the Newton? Certainly it was not Newton who went and told this Bhaskaracharya that there is a law of gravity. Newton was born in 1600 something, and Bhaskaracharya was born in the 6th century AD. So he's mentioning this thing, and along with this, he's also mentioning about the force of equilibrium. That even though the planets, they are moving in elliptical orbits, they don't fall out because of counter forces. We know the centrifugal and the centripetal forces. Because of these counter forces, they don't fall down. They keep on moving in the orbits. You can mention today, Bhati Samay Samantahat Kavya Patadyam Khe. So if this is the reason, how can the objects fall? Mentioned clearly that if there are counter forces acting from both sides, there is no reason why the object should fall. So this is the law of equilibrium, which should be actually attributed to Bhaskaracharya, not to Newton, or for that matter Copernicus. Coming to physics, I'm telling you I'm just, because the topic is too vast, but I have to make a very few illustrations, so I'm just telling you that this Michelson and Morley, we have all read about this experiment. We were taught that 2 big mirrors were located at a distance of 14 kilometers, and then they tried to find out the velocity of light, and they found out the velocity of light as 186,000 miles per second. Now you see this shloka, I'm telling you, this is the Rik Samhita. Please read this shloka carefully, and you'll mention this thing. I've translated this shloka into English. He says, Takarate yojna nam sastram dave daveshate dave cha yojne eken nimisardhen kammanam namostute. He says, English में मैंने लिखा, देखिए इसको जरा. It is remembered that the sunlight travels 2,202 yojnas in half a nimish. It's the translation. Sastram daveshate 2,202 yojna. Yojan means 9.5 miles. In half a nimisha. Half means half, and 1 nimish means 1 divided by 8.75 seconds. So if you calculate the speed of light on the basis of this, it exactly comes out to be 185,016 miles per second. Almost the same that it has been calculated by Michelson Morley. So without any sophisticated instruments. So these kind of inventions and discoveries, they should be attributed to the brilliance of the Indian scientists and physics. And then again, he's you're countering the principle, the second law of motion. To every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. No effect is possible without a cause, but the absence of it does not mean the absence of cause. Law of inertia of Newton, same thing. They mentioned in this Rik Samhita about 4,000 years back. So again, it's an Indian discovery invention. Now coming to physics, we're talking about the electricity, science and electricity. We say that electricity was, discovered by Thomas Alva Edison. That's what we say. But see, that 4,000 years ago, Rishi Agastya, what did he do? He produced electricity with copper plates in 100 pots. It's a recorded thing, and you can do it yourself. In 100 earthen pots, if you put copper, plates and fill it up with a chemical solution, it generates electricity, and that's what he's mentioned. It's clearly mentioned in the Agastya Samhita. This was compiled in 14th century AD. Of course, known to Agastya ji 4,000 years back. What he says is, in short, translated, I'm translating it, the electric energy, what is called as Mitra Paranu Shakti, can be generated using copper plates, which are called as Tamarpatra, and chemicals, Tardachit. It was the chemical, it has having some kind of mercury inside it, kept in 100 earthen pots, Shatanaham Kumbhanam, to make a battery bank. So this is how they developed batteries in the early times. And please read the other thing also down there. He's saying that this energy can be used for extracting nitrogen from air. And this nitrogen can even, move an aeroplane. So people were knowing how to, what was an aeroplane even at 4,000 years back. So aeroplanes and ships and all, they're not modern discoveries. We knew about all these things many years back, many centuries back. So this is the thing. See now, likewise in mathematics, concept of zero and decimals, the all Indian discoveries, numbers ranging from 1/16 to 10 to the power raised to 53. We were exposed to these kind of numerals many centuries back, and Romans could only count up to 50, maybe 100, about 200 years back. So Indians were far advanced. So again, you see, how to find out the cube root of a number and how to find the square root of a number. He's mentioning the formula itself. Once you divide one square place by twice the square root of the square place, then subtract the square from the next square place. This is how you find out the cube root of a number. So all these things are known, and I'm telling you about the Pythagoras Sutra, which I'm just going to say like this. You see, Bodhayan, about 1,000 years back, what did he write? The area of the squares produced separately by length and breadth of a rectangle together equal the area of the square produced by the diagonal. Please, this is what he mentioned. Is it different from the Pythagoras theorem? The square of the diagonal is equal to sum of the squares of the breadth and the height. So this is what the Pythagoras theorem is. And we are saying this thing. B square, the diagonal square equals to breadth square plus height square. So we knew it about 2,000 years back. And now Pythagoras in 1700 or 18th century comes up and he says that it is his contribution. No, it's not. It's Indian contribution. And then how to calculate the area of the triangle? You see, Aryabhat giving the simplest possible formula. Area has to be calculated half of the base multiplied by the perpendicular height. He is mentioning this thing. You see, Tribhajasya Phala Shriram Sambandhar Koti Bhujarg Samvargha. Clearly it shows area of the triangle is the product of half of one side and the perpendicular from opposite vertex to it. And then pi value, please. I'm just going to narrate a shloka, please. I hope nobody is getting bored, sir. Nobody, please. So, please, this is what you see Aryabhata calculating the value of pi. He's saying this thing in a shloka. Chaturmadikam Shatmastvam Chavishwar Chatista Sastranam 3.1416, and even up to 32 decimals, I'll tell you exactly. And people, they have calculated the value of pi only maybe 150 years back. And this, please, this is something very important. The Vedic numerical code. In our numeric code, in the Vedas, every alphabet has been assigned a number. This is not X and Y, which are variable. Every, you see, alphabet has a number. And the basic shloka is Kadi Nava. Please, I'll try to explain this. Just 2 minutes I'll take. Kadi Nava, Tadi Nava, Tadi Pachat Yadashakm Shanyam. This means Kadi Nava means begin from the letter K up to 9 letters further. Give number 1 to K and increasing one more number to every subsequent letter. K means 1, K means 2, G means 3, and so on till J, which means 9. Again begin with 1, P, T, you begin with 1, and then up to Dha you increase it to 9. Tadi Pachak, from Per you increase 5 numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And Yad Shashtak, from here you begin and give one number subsequent to subsequent letters up to 8. Ashtak, from here to her, the numbers are to be increased from 1 to 8. And Kshar will be given a Shuni number. Yes, sir, am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes,
am
sir.
I audible, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So this is the Vedic number code, sir. I am telling you that one number has been assigned to all the letters. And on the basis of this, I will tell you certain shlokas that have been mentioned in religious scripts. And they are so useful. See, I will show you this thing. This is one of the shlokas mentioned in, Gopi Geet of, Bhagavad. Somebody has written a treatise on Bhagavata. This is the shloka is mentioned. Gopi Bhagya Madhuvarat Shin Shoditi Sandhita Kal Vivit Khata Gal Hala Rasandara. See, from first letter onwards, assign the value. Ga means 3, Pa means 1, Bha means 4, Ya means 1. So this means 3.14592 value of pi up to 32 places of decimals. No other civilization, no other culture, no other history can claim to be so scientific, I'm telling you. It's only the Indians who can do this. And this shloka is not only the value of pi, it's also a hymn in praise of Lord Krishna in the Gopi Geet. It's mentioning about Gopi Bhagya Madhuvrat, गोपियों के भाग्य से जो भगवान कृष्ण ने ये नृत्य किया. This is the Khal Jivit Khatab Gal Hala Rasandra, and he was wearing Tulsi Mala and he was looking so beautiful. So this is the description of this shloka. And it gives you the value of pi also. And one more thing I'll tell you, sir, if you just read this shloka in the opposite direction, begin with the last Rasandra, Hala, Galaha, if you just read it in the opposite direction, it becomes the hymn in praise of Lord Shiva. Complete. So we are so scientific, sir. Indians have been the most scientific, since times immemorial. The only thing is, it's only the Indians who are letting us down. Nobody else can dare to. We are ourselves degrading our own culture. And mechanical engineering also is known to us. We are all engineers. Mentioned so many times. I'm talking about the rotation of shafts, wheels, and wedges, gears. Gears were known to us. For 4th, 14th century AD, they was known to us. You mentioned this thing. Dande Kriksha, Dandesh, Sarvani, Grabadini. This is, he's talking about how the gears work. This is mentioned in Narvam. This is one of the branches of Atharva Veda. It's mentioned how the wheel works and how the gears work. And likewise, you're talking about ships that are flying on water, and then you're talking about the space vehicles. Vyomayanam, they are saying. This is Bhrigu Samhita, 6th century AD. It's mentioning about Vyomayanam means aeroplanes. Jalan Loka means fleet of ships. And Bhumiyanam, that they're talking about the chariots walking in the earth. So we are familiar with everything. We are familiar with ground vehicles, we are familiar with the water vehicles, we are familiar with the air vehicles. So only thing is, many of our scriptures have been lost. If we don't learn this, probably we'll be getting much more than we actually know as of now. And then again, marine engineering, so many people in Ramayana, it's been mentioned hundreds of sailors are sailing 500 ships or something. I was just going through this, I collected this thing. And Rishi Bhardwaj, he talks about Viman Shastram. If you go through the book Viman Shastram, it's an ultimate treatise. Yeah, some of the things even I couldn't understand, but what I could just read through it, it's ultimate, I'm telling you. Aeroplanes running by nitrogen. They're saying that nitrogen से हवाई जहाज चलता है. अब वो कैसे चलता है ये मुझे भी नहीं पता है, पर जरूर चलता होगा जब लिखा है तो उसमें. And one more thing, I'm going to tell you just one more thing. हनुमान चालीसा की बात करते हैं सब लोग, हम लोग. We all recite हनुमान चालीसा every day. अभी हनुमान चालीसा was written down 500 years back by Goswami Tulsidas. और आप देखिए, this is how the distance between the sun and earth So average distance between Sun and Earth is roughly around 150 million kilometers. At the apophysis, it's 152 million kilometers, and at the periapsis, it's 147 million kilometers. So averagely, it's something around 150 million kilometers. This we all know. In Hanuman Chalisa, which was written this we tend to know from the Western scientists, maybe only 100-150 years back. But you see, Hanuman Chalisa written by Goswami Tulsidas, the 20th verse, he says, Juk sahastra jojan par bhanu liliyo tahi madhur fal janu. Juk sahastra jojan par bhanu. Bhanu means sun, Juk means 12,000, Sahastra means 1,000, Yojan means 8 miles. Per bhanu, you calculate this thing, 12,000 multiplied by 1,000 multiplied by 8, this means 96,000 miles. And if you calculate this comes out with 153 million kilometers. Exactly what we have found out today. Goswami Tulsidas, a person with complete, he was totally, a religious person. He is mentioning this thing. So obviously, this NASA didn't go and tell Tulsidas that the distance between Sun and Earth is 153 million kilometers. He did it on his own. So yes, it was known to us. And then again, see, people सब बकवास है, हनुमान जी ने वो खा लिया उसको सूरज को. अरे जब हम ब्लैक होल थ्योरी की बात कर सकते हैं, मान सकते हैं इस चीज को, तो उसी ब्लैक होल थ्योरी को अगर आप इसमें अडॉप्ट करके देखिए तो हनुमान जी उसको खा भी सकते हैं, क्योंकि हनुमान जी के पास 8 सिद्धियां और 9 निधियां हैं. He could attain any form, as big as possible and as small as possible. So this is what the black hole is. It's as big as infinity and as small as a dot. So he did it. So maybe we'll need another lecture to maybe describe all this. And probably this is what I have to say about science. Now coming to maybe a little environment part. Sir, should I continue for another 10-15 minutes? So do I have more 15 more minutes, sir?
Maybe Susab, 7-8 minutes. 7-8 minutes.
Sir, जरा सा just मुझे थोड़ा सा समय दे दीजिए, because environment will be little short. So please, I'll just try to culminate within 10-12 minutes.
President Narendra Singh ji.
Sir.
Yes. This is a wonderful.
Continue करें Susab को 5 more minutes.
I appreciate Dr. Sood, but due to time constraint, this should have been planned in other way. ठीक है, अब जो चल रहा है 5-10 मिनट और सुनने का मन है, पर ऐसा है बहुत ही अच्छा.
10 मिनट दे दीजिए सर. 10 more minutes sir. ठीक है सर, I need just 10 more minutes.
धन्यवाद नरेंद्र सिंह जी, धन्यवाद.
Very nice.
Sir, now what we did to environment, because all our lifestyle, all our the way of living, they're all intricately linked to the environment. We worship the people tree, sir, because people generates oxygen even during night. We worship the tulsi, it generates oxygen during night. And I tell you one thing, sir, being scientist myself, if you water tulsi plant and then you transfer close to tulsi, it generates a little ozone, and this is how the ozone layer regeneration takes place. But sir, the most unfortunate part is, when I made this presentation maybe about 1 year back in front of a big scientist, one big vice chancellor of a university, himself, he is a big botanist. He said, no, tulsi से इससे कोई ऐसा नहीं होता है, कोई people से रात को ऑक्सीजन नहीं निकलता है. You show me some scientific proof. Then I showed him at least 10 papers of foreign universities claiming that people generates oxygen during night. Only then he believed me, sir. हम ही अपनी चीजों में बिलीव नहीं करते हैं तो दूसरों को क्या कहना है फिर जाकर. तो ये सब चीजें हैं सर. अभी if you blow a conch and then the sound it radiates, the sound helps in killing all the bacteria in and around. So that's scientific concepts. ये देखिए सर, मैं बताना चाहता हूँ कि अर्थ इज कंपोज्ड ऑफ 5 elements. 5 elements आर भूमि, गगन, वायु, अग्नि और पानी, नीर. इनका शब्द लीजिए. भ से भूमि से भ, गगन से ग, वायु से व, अग्नि से आ और वाटर यानी नीर से न. तो आप देखिए क्या बनता है. दिस इज भगवान. गॉड इज मैनिफेस्टिंग इटसेल्फ इन दिस वर्ल्ड इन फॉर्म ऑफ these elements only, sir. So this is what our Goswami says. Kshitijal Pavak Gagan Samira Panch Rachit Ati Adam Sharira. So basic 5 elements, we have been saying this since times immemorial, and now the scientists are believing it. So big contribution towards environment as such. I'll tell you one very small incident, sir. I'll relate to a very small incident in Khejri village of Rajasthan in 1730 AD, when the then Maharaja of Jodhpur, he ordered felling of Khejri trees, Shami trees. And one lady named as Imarti Devi, along with her daughters and along with the entire village, they hugged those trees, and the soldiers of the king, he beheaded those people. 320 people, 29 people laid down their lives for the cause of enlightenment. And they said, Sir Shante Rukh Rahe to bhi saste jaan. Even if it is at the cost of saving a tree, still it's a good bargain. And this only Indians could do. Nobody else can do this thing. And now India have constituted Amarta Devi Wildlife Conservation Award. क्योंकि इमरती देवी थोड़ा हमको लगा ये थोड़ा ज्यादा गाँव हो जाएगा, we converted her name to Amrita. So this is the contribution. वो विष्णोई कम्युनिटी से थे, अब वो तो वहां उनका स्मारक वहां बना हुआ है. But you see the people type of contribution, मतलब the commitment that the people have always had towards the cause of environment. हम कहते हैं कि पेड़ जो हैं, वो लोग कहते थे कि पेड़ जो है वो they are not living beings. But you see in महाभारत about 3000 BC, 5000 पहले से, 5000 साल पहले से हम कहते हैं कि trees are living beings, and it's been proved. पहले लिखा देखिए, वल्ली वेशते वृक्षम सर्वतैश्च गच्छति. तो ट्री क्रीपर्स दे वाइंड अराउंड द ट्री. तो क्रीपर कब वाइंड अराउंड करेगा? जब उसको दिखाई देगा तभी तो उसके आसपास घूमेगा ना, ट्री के आसपास हो. तो दिस इज सेल्फ अ प्रूफ दैट ट्रीज कैन सी. ये क्रीपर्स कैन सी बिकॉज ट्रीज आर लिविंग बीइंग्स, which the Western scientists claim that it was their discovery. It is not their discovery, it is our discovery. And likewise, trees respond to smell. तो अभी जब आप देखिए तो so many things all mentioned in the our religious text. This is the part of my PhD. I did my PhD here. यार देखो यार आवाज नहीं सुनाई दे रही है. So the trees respond to smell. Then again, trees respond to light. All these things are mentioned in our text. So these are our discoveries, our inventions. And this I want to know, please, sir. This I want to share. Next, please. आप देखना यार. What is the value of a tree? This I just want to share. Probably this will be one of the last slides or something. Trees, you know, what do they do? They give oxygen, and one tree gives us an oxygen to the tune of 2,73,000 kg per year. And we need around 1,30,000 kg of oxygen for breathing every year, one person. So by planting one tree, you are virtually giving oxygen to 2 people for breathing. It's a big contribution. If we calculate this into monetary terms, it comes out to be something like 18.75 lakhs. अभी जब कोविड हुआ था, एक गैस का सिलेंडर 40 किलो का, एक गैस का सिलेंडर 40 किलो का उस समय 10-15 हजार रुपए में बिका वो. आप स्वयं अंदाजा लगाइए कि अब जहां ट्रीज थे वहां पर ज्यादा दिक्कत नहीं हुई, because people started planting trees in and around their houses. They gave us oxygen for free. Likewise, cause a lot of soil conservation. Pollution control. एक हेक्टेयर प्लांटेशन जो 600 टन कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड छोड़कर 400 टन ऑक्सीजन छोड़ता है. हैबिटेट फॉर वाइल्ड लाइफ स्पीशीज, एक पेड़ में कम से कम 250 प्रजातियां आपके एनिमल्स की और प्लांट्स की डिपेंड करती हैं. इफ यू हैव टू क्वांटिफाई देम इन मॉनेटरी टर्म्स, इट इज अगेन 18.75 lakhs. एंड ट्रीज बैलेंस द वाटर साइकिल. आई एम जस्ट रिसाइटिंग टू यू वन श्लोका फ्रॉम मत्स्य पुराण. दशा कूपो समावापी, दशा वापी समाहृद, दशा हृदय समो पुत्रो, दशा पुत्रो समो द्रुमा. Means even 10 ponds of water, they cannot accumulate that much water as one tree does in a lifespan of 10 years. It accumulates that water, soaks that water from the, and then it actually spreads into the atmosphere. So this is the kind of services that the trees give. So if we quantify all these services, one tree is worth 1.616 crore rupees. This research, this has been done by Michigan University of USA. Because till Indians were doing this research, we were saying, no, ये सही नहीं है. But because the foreigners did it, now we believe that what they did was correct. So these are, you know, we've been doing it. It's mentioned in our texts कि इतना पेड़ की है, लेकिन अब अंग्रेजों ने किया है तो हमें अच्छा लग रहा है. And then you see, sir, last thing I want to mention that every your planet, every Rashi, solar Rashi, moon Rashi, it has got a key link to it. And I did my research on it in my PhD. And then for some there is some tree, then there is another tree, and the one very fascinating conclusion that I came to, because people in whose horoscope, if there is sun is the problem, if there is some problem with the sun, then his eyes will be weak. His eyes will be weak. So if you know the tree associated with sun is this Procera, arc, which we call it. Arc is the tree from which medicine curing your eye comes from. So this is the very interesting correlation. If you plant if your son is weak, then you plant arc tree, because you will be consuming and creating of plants which can cure your disease. It happens in moon. If the moon is a problem with you, then you'll be having some mental disorders. The concerned tree, Butium monosperma dhak. Lot of minerals are made out of this tree, which cure your mental disorders, and so on and so forth. So please start planting trees, because this is the best thing that you could do. In our culture and traditions, tree cutting is a big crime. We never used to cut trees unduly. So this was again, this is the Rashi plants, and then probably the last slide, the Will Durant of US is a big philosopher. After reading Indian texts and scriptures for 3 or 4 decades, so he says that India is the fountainhead of knowledge. It's the mother of all languages. It's the mother of all science and philosophy. So this is what the foreigners say now, because they say so, we also say so, but we don't say it on our own. Because we all believe, the greatness of this country is, the greatness of our civilization is, we believe, in plurality. We believe in inclusiveness. You see this thing, we saw Vasudev Kutumbakam. We say that if you feel that he's your friend and somebody else is your enemy, this is a very limited thought. You need not have this kind of a thought. We should have a big thought. We believe that everybody is our friend and the entire world is one. So only India says this, nobody else can. And then the Shanti part we are saying, the Om, this we will reciting from school onwards, Shanti Dev, Shanti Rantarik, Shanti Rapa, Shanti Prithvi, that let there be peace. Everywhere should be peace. Only India can say this thing. When people are at war, we are. So this is the greatness of the country, because we believe in plurality. This is what India believes in. We believe in plurality. Everybody has the right to live. All other forms of life, all other believers of religions, they have the right to live. We believe in peace, and we believe in prosperity for all. This is the greatness. Because we believe that Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sarve Santu Niramya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kashchit Dukh Bhag Bhavit. Let everybody be happy. Let everybody see good things. Nobody should have sorrows. Om Shanti. This is what India stands for. So probably there cannot be a bigger culture, bigger civilization, bigger philosophy, bigger science than any other country in this world. So the theme of this presentation is, we need to believe in our past and learn from our past. This is the theme basically. And once we have learned from the past, please adapt for the future. As Vardi Chairman was saying, that we have to innovate. We have to innovate with the passage of time and then adapt ourselves towards the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I think it was such a informative and interesting presentation we as an Indian must be proud of. And to add it, my enthusiasm, and it is very indeed happy to see even this time more than 100 attendees are continuously joined with us for this interesting topic and wonderful presentation. So now may I request Engineer Sunil Grover, Chairman BOG NSDF, for his concluding address. Sir, over to you.
Mr. President, Institution of Engineers India, Narendra Singh ji, the speaker of the day, Dr. Sanjay Sood, all the fellow attendees. Very, very good evening to all of you. I am privileged and delighted to tell you all that when we talk about this World Heritage Day, few days back, Dr. Sanjay came to me with the topic which I found the best one to not only commemorate this World Habitat Day, But I thought probably Dr. Sanjay, being our own mechanical engineer, a gold medalist, now an IFS officer who has worked in pollution control and now the conservator of forest, looking at the ecos of this country. And when I spoke to our president Narendra Singh ji, he overwhelmingly agreed to address and the way today he came extempore telling us about that ancient India, because of those researches of that time, we are here on this day celebrating World's Habitat Day. First of all, I would like to thank on behalf of all the corporate members and from the National Skill Development Forum, our President Narendra Singh ji, for sparing from his valuable time some moments for us, and for this purpose I thank him from all of us. Bharata, the Bharat, before this name came to us, it was known in ancient times as Jambu Dvip. And if we take the literal meaning of that Jambu Dvip, it was Barry Island. A Barry Island, the land of rishis, the seers, the land of Gita, Mahabharata, Ramayana, and the present times Vivekananda and our own legendary Abdul Kalam. Those Vedas, having everything put as a science into them, in 20,024 odd slokas, as very rightly pointed out by Dr. Sanjay, that maybe you take Rig Veda, Samveda, Yajurveda or Atharveda, you have the knowledge about all materials, all sciences, all karma, everything, what not and what not. And power of our rishis, he could tell to you, as in Hanuman Chalisa, the distance between the earth and sun already stand defined. He thoughtfully told about the science and the 15 innovations put into writing, starting with the ideas of zeros, going down to decimal system, numerical notation, Fibonacci numbers, Chakravala method of algorithm, ruler measurements, theory of atom, holocentric theory, wood steel, smelting of zinc, which was an innovation put into our Vedas, which nobody could thought about. That smelting of zinc can do wonders in the scientific world. Then the plastic surgery, as Sanjay rightly told us about, then the cataract surgery, and in medicines, our own Ayurveda. What our trees gives us, he rightly told us about. Now, if you really look at what we engineering fraternity really can do to this world, after having read all these literatures, having studied our engineering sciences in the engineering college, what really we can add for the society to have their human aspiration met with, so that they have clean energy, they have got clean air, they have got clean water to live on this clean and healthy planet. I am reminded of what Abdul Kalam once wrote in his book, rather one of the books. He wrote, ancient India was a knowledge society that contributed a great deal to civilization. We need to recover. We need to recover the status and become a knowledge power. We need to recover the status and become a knowledge power. Then spirituality must be integrated with education. Dr. Sanjay, hats off to you, rightly said so by you. Once this spirituality must be integrated with education. And finally, what sermon he gave, we need to adopt. We should ignite our dormant inner energy. We should ignite our dormant inner energy and let it guide our lives, so that the radiance of such minds, embarked on constructive endeavor, which will bring peace, prosperity, and well-being to each one of us, and we'll be able to live on this healthy world in a healthier way. With these words, once again, my sincere thank to Engineer Narendra Singh, Dr. Sanjay, all my fellow engineers from Himachal Pradesh who have been there with us in celebrating this World Habitat Day, and all the dear attendees. Whosoever has not been able to have the listening of Dr. Sanjay at this point in time, he can take his lecture at his leisure, sitting in his drawing room, living room, or in the bedroom, on our YouTube channel, which is the II YouTube channel of NSDF II. This is there, and this will continue to be there. With these words, I thank Engineer Narendra Singh, Dr. Sanjay, Engineer Dipesh, Shri Devraj, and all others who have not only graced this occasion, but helped me and Engineer Pankaj Dadwal, the chairman of State Center, to make this endeavor a grand success. Thank you very much. Jai Hind, Jai Himachal. Long live II, long live engineering fraternity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Now I would like to invite Engineer Kusum Sarma Honorary Secretary, Himachal Pradesh State Center, to propose a formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dipesh ji. American cellular biologist and leading ecologist, and among us the founders of the modern environment movement, Barry Commoner has very well said, the proper use of science and engineering is not to conquer nature, but to live in it. Good evening, everyone. Respected President, Institution of Engineers, India, Engineer Narendra Singh Sir, Dr. HRP Yadav ji, Director Headquarter Cell at Delhi, Council Member and Chairman National Skill Development Forum Engineer Sunil Grover ji, Chairman Institution of Engineers HP State Center Engineer Pankaj Dadwal ji, Dr. Sanjay Sood ji, Speaker for today's workshop, all members from engineering fraternity present here and connected online. As we have joined here on the occasion of World Habitat Day, I deem it a great honor and privilege to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. I would like to start off by thanking everyone for joining us in this workshop on occasion of World Habitat Day. World Habitat Day is marked on the first Monday of October each year and is organized and is recognized by the United Nations. So we are here today to celebrate World Habitat Day. The climate crisis is widely recognized as the #1 threat facing the world today, and it is our cities and towns which are responsible for much of the climate change, which is resulting in devastating floods, droughts, and violent storms. In fact, cities and towns produce around 70% of the main greenhouse gases. World Habitat Day provides an international opportunity to raise awareness and push for immediate action through events, discussions, and campaigns. Amidst the climate issues going around, I personally think sustainable development is the need and important requirement of our time that we simply cannot ignore. Sustainable development is not only economically advantageous but also ensures cities where people can have improved quality of living. Engineers are the builders of the nation, but we are also parents to the future of the country to whom we must ensure a world that is livable. Events and activities during World Habitat Day will explore how national, regional, and local governments and organizations, communities, academic institutions, the private sector, and all relevant stakeholders can work together to create sustainable, carbon neutral, inclusive cities and towns. Not talking much on this topic, on behalf of IEI HP State Center Shimla, I thank Dr. Sanjay Sood ji, speaker for today's workshop on the subject Role of Ancient India towards Modern Day Science and Environmental Conservation, for sharing his valuable thoughts. Thank you very much, Chairman National Skill Development Forum Engineer Sunil Grover ji, Director National Skill Development Forum Engineer Vishwa Mohan Joshi ji, and all NSDF members and staff for helping us to organize this event on this platform. A big thank you to President Institution of Engineer India, Engineer Narendra Singh ji, Engineer HRP Yadav ji, Director Headquarter at Delhi Center, Shri Dipesh Shrivastava ji from Headquarter Kolkata, for sparing their valuable time, and all members present here and who have joined us through online mode. Last but not the least, I thank our staff of HP State Center and Shri Devraj ji for their contribution to make this event successful. On World Habitat Day, let us work together to harness the transformative potential of sustainable urban action for the benefit of our planet and all forms of life on Earth. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So now we are ending this webinar, and I thank all of you for joining with us. Thank you so much. Thank you.
With the permission of chair, may I close the webinar?
Yes, please.
Thank you, sir.
बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग लेक्चर था सर, थैंक यू सो